Correct, correct.
Well, I don't think so. No.
Okay. I mean, because you told me that you ultimately supported the investigation because it allowed to go much deeper than the controls you had in place.
Meaning I supported at a time when there was not, as I said earlier, there was not an approved EPO test. I was glad that they actually took the samples and tested. Obviously, they were looking for EPO. So I was glad that they took them and found nothing.
In that case, though, they must have tested the B samples because that's all there would have been.
Well, there would have been. They would have taken the A sample after the race and stored the B sample. And I think that's what they confiscated.
Okay. Have you actually seen the contract between my clients, SCA Promotions, and Tailwind Sports?
Briefly.
Okay. Obviously, you're deeply familiar with your contract with Tailwind that would require the payment of bonuses.
I wouldn't say deeply, but less.
Okay. Is it your belief that in connection with earning the bonuses from Tailwind through winning the Tour de France, that you believed you had to comply with the rules of the Tour de France in order to earn those bonuses?
Yeah, you have to comply with the rules.
I mean, you don't for a moment contend or pretend or say that you could not legitimately win the Tour de France, I mean, comply with all the rules, but still earn the bonus, correct?
I think if you comply by the rules, you declare the winner, then the team owes the money. And therefore, same rules apply from the team to SCA.
So I noticed in your most current contract with Tailwind, there's no provision regarding doping, and there was one in your prior contract. Are you aware of that distinction?
Not necessarily, but that's irrelevant because if you have a doping offense or you test positive, it goes without saying that you're fired from all of your contracts, not just the team, but there's numerous contracts that I have that would all go away.
Sponsorship agreements, for example.
All of them. And the faith of all the cancer survivors around the world. So everything I do off of the bike would go away too. And don't think for a second, I don't understand that. It's not about money for me. Everything. It's also about the faith that people have put in me over the years. So all of that would be erased. So I don't need it to say in a contract, you're fired if you test positive. That's not as important as losing the support of hundreds of millions of people.
Well, it sounds to me like your testimony is that you're acutely aware of the importance and significance that you are a clean athlete, that you have not tested positive.
Correct.
And in fact, you've made many public statements through the course of your career that you don't use and haven't used performance-enhancing drugs, just like you made here today.
No, I wouldn't say that. Last week I just decided to issue a statement. I've responded to questions and I've responded to accusations. Only because those were asked. But not to mislead anybody, not to tell people how to do business, what deals to enter into or not to enter into. I make those statements purely as defense.
Well, how else do your sponsors and people who have these contracts with you know whether or not you are in fact a clean athlete unless they're hearing what you're saying publicly, right?
Well, most of them have been in relationships that have been in place for a long time, and they know me. They trust me. As I said earlier, this is the only issue that's ever been, the only relationship that's ever been questioned, which is not necessarily a relationship even.
Right, my clients never actually spoke to you, right?
Right.
You don't even know them. You wouldn't be able to pick them out of a lineup, fair to say. But you wouldn't You wouldn't be surprised, would you, Mr. Armstrong, that my clients were aware of your public statements regarding the fact that you didn't use performance-enhancing drugs prior to entering into a contractual relationship with Tailwind, are you?
They're in the business of insurance, so when you're in the business of insurance, you do your due diligence. Quite frankly, I find it hard to believe that you would have entered, if this was a question today, after what we saw in 1998 with the Festina affair, even the questions that began in 99 with myself, the investigation that began in 2000, which was the front page of every newspaper around the world, I don't really know how they would have been misled. Maybe the front page of every newspaper around the world doesn't mean due diligence.
Well, as part of due diligence done by anyone in doing business with you, you would expect them to hear, read, and understand your public statements regarding.
Yeah, and I don't want to confuse the matter. I've responded to questions. I've not offered up those things. It's not as if I put it on the website or issue a press release just because I had a good day on the bike. I felt great today. I better issue a statement that says I'm clean. They've always been responses.
But you are aware of some professional cyclists who play games by saying things like, well, I've never tested positive, but don't follow that up with a statement, and I never have ever used performance-enhancing drugs.
I don't know.
You're not familiar with some athletes that have sought to draw a distinction between testing positive and never using performance-enhancing substances?
I don't recall.
But that wasn't your intent when you made public statements, correct?
As I said, I was responding to the question or the accusation.
Okay. Well, someone did due diligence on you prior to entering into a business relationship. It is your belief that they wouldn't turn up anything worth being worried about with respect to you or your performance, correct?
With credibility?
Correct.
No.
And you could read all the newspapers in the world, but in your mind, there's nothing out there that would lead to any reasonable suspicion that your statements regarding your non-use of performance-enhancing drugs isn't 100% accurate. Fair?
All I can tell you is we've never had that phone call. Nobody's called and said if it's Coca-Cola, if it's Nike, if it's Bristol-Myers Squibb, if it's any, nobody has called and said, we have some questions.
Right, but as you acknowledge, it's either implicit or explicit in your contracts with sponsors that if you have any connection to doping, those contracts can be terminated.
I think that's the case with every athlete's agreement with a company.
Okay.
I think it's more of an ethical clause. It could also include drinking and driving. It could include spousal abuse. It could include any conviction for any felony or whatever. So.
Okay. There's an allegation by Mr. Swart regarding an effort to secure the outcome of a series of races involving you. Are you aware of that?
I've heard the comments.
Is there any truth to Mr. Swart's statements that he was offered $50,000 in connection with attempting to fix the outcome of some races in which you were involved?
Not true.
Did you, in fact, he recounts three races you had to win to earn $1 million bonus. Do you recall those 3 races and actually earning the $1 million bonus?
I do.
And were you, in fact, paid the $1 million bonus?
Well, it was not exactly like the lottery or like any other insurance deal. I think it was, the option was $50,000 over 20 years or a one-time payment of some other lump sum, but just like every other cycling event, the money is split amongst the team. So what, did I receive $1 million? No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Do you remember if you took the lump sum? Or you
No, yeah, we took the lump sum, yeah.
Okay. And then some of that went to you and some of that went to the team? Is that
Correct.
how it works? Okay. Do you remember what the lump sum was? Or approximately?
I don't remember.
Okay. That's why you described it like the lottery. You get a discount on a lump
Well,
sum.
I've never won a lottery, but I think they get either a lump sum or consistent payments over X amount of years.
Do you know why Mr. Swart would say these things?
As I said earlier, I have no idea why. other than perhaps, like Emma O'Reilly, he was paid for his testimony and needed the money.
Do you believe that's why Miss O'Reilly said these things about you?
Absolutely.
That she needed money?
I'm not her financial advisor, but I think, which we now know, that Walsh paid his sources, which he denied in the beginning, now admits. I don't think any respected journalist would find that to be kosher.
But other than that, do you have any other evidence to suggest that Miss O'Reilly was making up this in exchange for money, other than the fact that she received some compensation?
Emma or Stephen?
Emma.
Oh, sorry. Pissed at me, pissed at Johan, really pissed at Johan, pissed at the team. Afraid that we were going to out her as a, all these things she said, as a whore or whatever, I don't know. But primarily, I have to confess, I think it was a major issue with Johan.
Now, when
and it wouldn't have been a very good book if it was JB Confidential. There would not have been a lot of sales.
I don't know. The stories might have been wilder. Some of the information that was detailed in the book, for example, the statements by Miss O'Reilly alleging these things about you, there had been no public disclosure of anything like that prior to the book. Like, Miss O'Reilly had never talked publicly, had she, about you with respect to these allegations of the syringes and all that kind of stuff?
Not that I know of.
The book also details allegations that I've recounted for you from Mr. Schwartz. I mean, those weren't, to your knowledge, those weren't out there publicly prior to Mr. Walsh publishing them in his book, were they?
Not that I know. I mean, I suppose I would have known.
Right. And to the best of your knowledge, had the Indiana, I call it the Indiana Hospital incident, but I understand your testimony regarding it. Had there ever been
the football game?
Well, the
I don't remember the score.
Did the Cowboys win?
It was 96. They were still pretty good.
The group meeting in the Indiana University Hospital, had there ever been, to your knowledge, any publication about allegations about what you said prior to Mr. Walsh in his book?
Not that I know of.
Okay, so you would at least agree with me that prior to Mr. Walsh's book coming out, the stuff from Mr. Schwartz, from Miss O'Reilly, and about the Indiana University Hospital, those allegations were not publicly out there prior to being detailed in Mr. Walsh's
I said
book?
not that I know of. Okay. I don't read everything. I don't know.
Did you recently make a donation to the Indiana University Hospital?
I funded Dr. Larry Einhorn's endowment.
When did you do that? Do you remember?
Recent weeks.
Was it before or after the Andrews depositions, for example?
No, way before.
Was it this year?
In 2005?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in recent weeks. I mean, we issued a press release, so I can get you the press release. That would pretty much give you the date.
Okay. But sometime in the first half of 2005.
I don't want to misspeak. I would rather just get the press release. I would think it's the first half takes you to July 1st, right? I think it's after that.
After that, okay. How long had you been considering funding that chair?
Well, I know they've been looking for a backer for some time. So it was a large commitment, so it's not an easy decision you just make like that.
Have you had any contact with the Indiana University Hospital to investigate these allegations made by the Andrews,
No.
other than checking to see if the Cowboys played on that Sunday?
Well, that wasn't with Indiana. That was with...
Have you talked to anyone at the hospital in efforts to get statements from them, for example, that this never happened?
Not that I know. I do keep in touch with Dr. Einhorn, and people that have been there. But